Curtis, and hi, Roxanne. And I have clicked on both of you to be following you, so we appreciate you guys being here. This is going to be fun today, talking with Tyler and Teresa about gluten-free, right, Mike?
Absolutely, and it's kind of cool. First of all, just my name is Mike Warren. I'm the president of Alternative Health Concepts, and we have our weekly blab all about health-related issues that you're dealing with on an individual basis. We have a lot of people that are kind of in our group, so to speak, that follow us at our website and get our weekly blogs. We send out 3 a week, all health-related, the latest trends, what's going on in health. And this whole thing about gluten-free and whether you should be, whether you shouldn't be, there's some controversy. Actually, not as much controversy when I was doing my own little bit of research about it as there really should be, because now that I've got into this a little bit, I realize that gluten, especially from the form of wheat, is really, really tough on our systems, and it does some really bad things. Latest research I found was that over 200 diseases are actually related to gluten intolerance, or an offshoot of that. The different chemicals and proteins that are in wheat itself and the gluten itself from the wheat cause these problems. So we just wanted to talk about it today and get some of your experiences with it. I know for myself, for the last about 6 months, I've not been religious about it, but I've gone off all grains and I feel better. I'm losing some weight, have a lot less joint pain in my knees. So I know there's something to this gluten-free bit. And I go off a little bit here and there. My wife's birthday was last week and we had a piece of birthday cake, and, it was fine. But for the most part, we try and stay away from it. Now, Tyler, I haven't gotten to talk to Tyler or meet Tyler. Tyler's joined us, and actually, Tyler, if I understand it correctly, you have celiac disease. Is that correct?
That's correct. I just found out in September.
Oh, wow.
Not too long ago, actually.
Okay, so obviously, you're not an old guy like Wayne and I. You're a nice, young, vibrant, looks like athletic person. Tell us about your story and what happened and how you came to realize that you had this.
Absolutely. And first, I like that you said there was controversy, because there is with food. Like I've noticed that. Like food is so cultural that if you tell somebody you're not eating gluten or you're a vegetarian, you're a vegan, it's almost like they get offended, right? Because it's such a cultural thing. But if it makes you feel good, it makes you feel different, then stick with it. Because I kind of got that when I was exploring if my issues were gluten related. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this is just a fad," but no, if it makes you feel better, stick with it. But like you said, I've been physically active all my life. I would do some running and biking in high school, and then in college I actually taught yoga, and I always ate right. I ate what people would consider healthy, but I still would just feel sick. I was also the marketing director for a national restaurant chain, Piccadilly Restaurants, for a while too. And even when I was there, I still would eat healthy. And in what people would consider a balanced diet, there's grains. So to me, I was eating healthy, but I would just feel terrible. Heartburn, indigestion, any kind of digestive issue you can imagine. I would just feel sluggish. And then when I started working in an office, I wasn't as active as much. I still ate well, but I was sitting down all day and I just felt terrible. So this went on for a while. I mean, I saw gastroenterologists, I saw specialists, and they wanted me to fork up all of these procedures and tests to see what might be the issue. And I just decided I was going to do a food diary and start being a little more adamant about exercising. And I started feeling better by default just because I was getting out more, but I still felt bad. And it was actually, I was sitting down working one day, and my girlfriend came in, and she looked at my arms and she said, she noticed that I had bumps on the back of my arms. And I had this all my life. It's not eczema or anything. It's just like little goosebumps. She said, well, that could just be a skin condition, but I just read that that's a symptom of having a gluten sensitivity. So I was like, you know what? It probably wouldn't take that much effort to stop eating grains. So I'm going to do it. So I made little changes. Instead of having toast with my breakfast, I would have oatmeal, or instead of having pasta with dinner, I would do rice. And I would say within 2 weeks, I felt incredible. I was sleeping better. I saw changes in my body within a week or two, just
wow.
Not bloated, feeling great. And after a while, I noticed I was feeling so good. And one of my interns from my past job, she has celiac, and she was like, yeah, but you might want to go see if it's more than a sensitivity. It's just a quick blood test to see if you have celiac, because a lot of people have a sensitivity, which means that you just get discomfort when you eat gluten. But if you have celiac, there's inflammation because of the gluten. So that's what I have. But I went and took a blood test, and I do have celiac. And luckily, I'd already been gluten-free for some time, so it wasn't that big of a lifestyle change.
We got a question that came in, and since you're in the middle of it, I know that, and you're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. Mark from Nourish the Planet asked, what kinds of food have gluten in them? Is it a natural or is it added to foods? Great question, by the way, because if you're not familiar with this whole process and what it does to your body, then you need to find out. So great question. Appreciate that. Yeah. Maybe you could answer that, Tyler.
Yeah, it is natural. It's naturally in wheats. It's naturally in grains. It's naturally in flour. So first you have the obvious. You have the breads. You have your pasta. You have anything that's built with grain. But then there are some small things you might not realize. Like a lot of soups at restaurants might be thickened with flour. A lot of cereals might have barley flour in it. So there are some small things in there that you might not realize. But
the main culprit's wheat. Wheat is the main culprit? Yes. I've read wheat, barley, rye are the three big grains. How about like grains like corn? Is there gluten in corn? I couldn't really find much on that.
No, and corn is kind of, if you're going gluten-free, corn's your biggest savior, because so you can go to a Mexican restaurant and ask for a corn tortilla instead of a wheat one, and all of your issues are solved as far as going out to eat.
But then you have the GMO issue with corn. 99% of corn is GMO, and as we know, that can be almost as bad for you as the gluten in the wheat. So it's a double-edged sword. That's why I just eliminated all grains. I found it easier for me just to forget about it all, and it works for me.
Yeah. And a small amount of people have celiac. It's I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it's not a huge percentage. And people like me, technically, for a restaurant to really be gluten-free, or for an item to sincerely be gluten-free, it has to be prepared in a place where there is no other gluten around it, because gluten can be in the air from the flour. Some people that have really severe celiacs, that would affect them. It doesn't for me, I don't think. So if you just have a gluten intolerance or a sensitivity, which most people, if you have an issue with gluten, it's probably a sensitivity rather than celiacs. And in that case, you should be fine. Just,
Hey, go back to the little bumps on the back of your arm, because that's something I read, and that's something I had. And I have noticed it a lot less. I thought it was just, I wasn't detoxing right. My skin wasn't breathing properly. I didn't know what it was. And literally, I just got that answer this week when I was starting to kind of do some reading up on gluten.
Yeah, and I wish I could show you, but it's not really there. So
right.
Because it went away.
Tyler, tell me this. Did you say that you think you had them since you could remember?
Yeah. So yes. Okay. I had them my whole life. Wow. I remember my mom taking me to a dermatologist when I was 4 or 5, and the doctor was like, "Oh, it's just something a lot of people have," and because you can't even see it, it's not like it's even red. It's more of a feeling.
Yeah.
And is that now the way you were saying that for you that was a symptom, that was symptomatic? Yeah. But would that be something that anybody that just notice, I wake up this morning and I didn't never notice I had it before, but today I notice I do. And a week from now, I'm checking again. I notice I do now. Would that be a good indication that someone might want to check out whether they have celiac disease? And let me go with that one. How easy is the diagnosis? So in other words, once you finally got there after all this time, is the diagnosis fairly simple and fairly accurate once you've had it, once you've had whatever the process is?
Yes, it is simple and accurate. For me, I was lucky enough to have kept a food diary and to have gotten rid of gluten already by the time I took a test. And the test is a simple blood test. So for me, it wasn't a big lifestyle change.
So the test, can you take the test if you're still, let's say you have no idea that you've got a gluten intolerance and you're still eating the grains, and now you have the test, will that show that you've got celiac disease then, or do you have to have eliminated them before you would have the test?
And no, you can, from what I'm pretty sure you can take it while you're still eating it. But most doctors are going to recommend you keep a food diary anyway and eliminate it to C, just because that's a more easy route to take.
Nice. So how long did you say after so when you got, had you already cut out the grains before you actually were diagnosed, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably a month or two. But I mean, I was, and again, guys, I mean, I exercise, I'm active, but I just felt terrible.
Yeah. Interesting. So how long did it take? I've read this week that it can literally take years to get all the gluten proteins out of your body.
Yeah, I've read that too.
Okay. So, but as far as your symptoms go, and did you have the bad diarrhea and all those different symptoms? I mean, were you having the really major symptoms of? I was.
Okay. I was. Any kind of digestional issue you can imagine, I had. And it was weird. I mean, it was very odd because I was very active and fit.
Interesting.
Yeah. But they say that gluten can stay in your system for years. But for me, the symptoms went away within a month.
Oh, wow.
And again, I at least get up and go for a morning walk, and I eat fairly healthy.
Yeah.
Do you eat much processed food generally? And here's where I'm going with this. If you were to answer yes, it would mean that you'd have to look at ingredients labels on just about everything that you have, right? To make sure that it's not good.
Right. So I don't. I don't eat a lot of processed food unless it is from a specialty store that says it's gluten-free. But that's one thing I made sure of when I started watching what I eat, because I didn't want to just start eating healthy and completely change my diet, because then I wouldn't have been able to say, okay, it was gluten, because then it could have been a number of things.
Sure.
So I made sure if I still ate a junk food that didn't have gluten in it, I'm going to still eat that junk food just to make sure. I still had some chocolate. I still had a little bit of ice cream, just because I wanted to make sure it was the gluten, and it was.
Hey, Derek, good to see you. I can't see you. I guess I shouldn't say good to see you. Good to see that you're here.
Good to see you. By the way, Derek is from Pakistan, so just show you how this goes all over the world. Very cool. We've never talked with you about this. We've actually talked with Derek on several other of our labs about some issues that he has, or his several friends have. Dengue fever is one, and we've talked about several other issues that are out there. So I'm curious, is gluten intolerance a topic medically that's talked about much in your country? And so either put a note in or maybe ask to come on and you can give us an answer to that. And by the way, that's for everybody that's on. Sherry, you're on. Anybody that wants to come in, we've got an open seat and talk about gluten intolerance.
Absolutely.
Tyler, back to yourself again. It looks like Zaki's asking to come in, so we'll pull him in here. And I know he probably doesn't have a webcam, so we'll hear him and probably not see him. Tyler, back to your situation. So how long after you started, and you said you were eliminating the grains, before you got the diagnosis, but how quickly were you seeing something improve in terms of your symptoms?
And that's going to vary from person to person. For me, I would say within 2 weeks. I mean, even physically, I was going to the gym and stuff, and I was seeing results. But even I was seeing changes in my body within 2 weeks. And that might sound crazy, but I was seeing changes very quickly.
Awesome.
It's kind of astonishing, really. And I just felt better. And that's the biggest thing is you feel better.
So did you just go cold turkey? I mean, was that the best way for you?
Yes.
Okay, that was for me too. I've read where sometimes when you feel like you may have gluten intolerance or gluten sensitivity, the best way to do that is an elimination diet where you start eliminating certain things and then start re-adding those items back in. To me, it was just, that's more
Right.
stress than it was worth. To me, it was just easier to say, forget it.
Yeah. And again, for me, I had a pretty standard diet. It wasn't as difficult. It is the holidays though, and I come from my Italian grandparents with pasta, everything. And then I'm in Mississippi, so fried catfish and gumbos made with roux, and it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna persevere these next few days.
Absolutely.
And Roxanne didn't ask the question, but she actually made a comment and said, too hard when you love corn and macaroni. Didn't I hear you say, Tyler, that corn is actually not an issue? Corn is
Right.
appropriate, so you can have corn.
Right, and here's another thing, guys. You can make pasta out of other things from flour. There's rice pasta, there's rice noodles. So if you like pad Thai or Thai food, a lot of Asian cuisine makes their noodles from rice, and that's fine too. So there's a lot of very simple alternatives.
Nice.
Yes, they would be great. And again, guys, I love food. I love to cook. My grandparents actually owned restaurants growing up. I used to work for a national restaurant chain in marketing. I love me some food. I love to cook. But there's workarounds, and to me, feeling better is worth it, even if you have to switch out, your rice noodles for your regular noodles and your mac and cheese.
There you go.
I do know in Europe, being gluten-free isn't, some places in Europe being gluten-free isn't really talked about, especially in France. I know it's fairly new.
Is that right? That's interesting.
Yeah, I think they opened I know Paris just opened up their first bakery that catered to gluten-free folks, which is very interesting.
So Roxanne asked a question here, and that's a great one. And I'm not sure I have a good answer. So Tyler and Mike, maybe you look at this too. So is canned corn okay? I'm going to give an answer, but I don't know that it's accurate. I would say that the key there is you'd have to look on the ingredients on the label, because just because it's canned doesn't mean they didn't use something else to preserve it, or they added. So if there's any kind of an additive, it might be a problem. However, I don't think they probably would, and it's very likely that it's just corn, and that they've
Right.
actually done something to make sure that they could can it. So it probably wouldn't be a problem if it was.
Yeah, not a lot of additives. Yeah, not a lot of additives are going to have gluten in it. Gluten is a naturally occurring germ. I'm using germ not in the sense of something health-wise, but in the sense of agriculturally. It's something natural. So it's more in wheat, it's more in flour, anything that derives from wheat. So naturally, corn is not going to have any gluten in it. And to my knowledge, not a lot of additives are going to have gluten in it. Now, if you bought a corn chowder in a can or a corn soup, that's probably going to have gluten because they probably used wheat or wheat flour to thicken the sauce.
Absolutely. In fact, sometimes you see gluten itself is added, which is interesting. They'll take the gluten from the wheat, even in bread. In some breads, you look at a label on bread, it'll have added gluten on top of the whole wheat, for example, because the gluten is what gives it the consistency that we all love in bread, the spongy consistency. That's what it does. That's what the protein does. It breaks it down and makes it easier to expand and do some of those things that breads do. Can I go back to that question about the corn, though? because it's like a pet peeve of mine. And Roxanne, I'll talk to you directly about this, is the problem with corn and with soybeans, and particularly in America, which are both the biggest crops that we have in America. It varies. I've heard 98%, I've heard 99% of corn and soybeans are GMO. They're genetically modified organisms. That's what GMO stands for. The problem with that is that, and there is controversy on that too, but as far as I'm concerned, there should be no controversy. Whenever you take and genetically manipulate a particular food substance so that it is not susceptible to fungicides or even insecticides, and those things actually can get into your body. So what happens with a genetically modified organism like corn is they will spray the living crap out of this stuff with fungicides, insecticides, and that stuff soaks right down. Roundup, which is made by Monsanto, which is, I won't get into politics of what I think about Monsanto, but they are literally killing us because those insecticides, the corn is modified so that it can accept the insecticides, they can suck it up, and it is nothing more than Roundup. And Roundup, as you know, if you go spray it on a piece of grass, it will kill the grass. Now they've changed it and they've modified seeds and everything else so that it won't kill it. But if you spray those same insecticides on an organic corn, it will kill the corn. So what happens is when you eat genetically modified organisms or food like corn, and 99% of it is genetically modified, you are getting those insecticides into your body and they are poisoning you. And at a cellular level, my recommendation is if you're going to eat some grains and you limit it to rice and corn, make sure that you're eating organic. And that takes care of it. Make sure that it's certified organic. Buy it from your local farmer's market, whatever you need to do. But if you at least take that step, go on with it there, you'll be fine. And corn isn't a bad thing. We've had it for years, but it's very high in glucose. So if you struggle with anything with sugar or diabetes or just being overweight, it has a very high glycemic rate and it'll attack your body very quickly. So that'll do some bad things. So there's some reasons not to eat corn, but if you're got to eat corn, make sure it's organic. If you're going to buy corn chips because you like corn chips, make sure it's organic. So that's my 2 cents on that. I'll get off my soapbox.
Derek has responded that celiac disease is something that is common and known about in Pakistan. But he actually talked about seasonality, interestingly. I don't know why celiac would be seasonal. And then Roxanne, another great question. How close is the gluten-free diet to the Atkins diet? That's not one that I would know an answer to. So either Mike or Tyler, do you guys know?
I'm not familiar with Atkins. I am familiar though with the paleo diet. So it could be. I'm just not familiar with Atkins. I know in the paleo diet, I don't know if you're familiar with that. The paleo diet essentially does believe in they believe in eating anything that's natural, essentially. And I think in the paleo diet, they also say that wheat isn't good for the digestive system. So I know their diet doesn't have any gluten in it.
I have no specific details on Atkins, but it's low carb. Atkins was one of the original low carbs. So carbs are obviously really high in wheat. And so I don't know that it's specifically, Atkins is an old diet. So yes. I would think that maybe they weren't focusing on gluten. Interestingly, and this leads to another question, in terms of taste, I had a gluten-free bakery that was adjacent to me in an office that I was previously in about 6 years ago. And they struggled initially because they couldn't get stores to agree to take on their product because the history was that previous bakeries had provided product that didn't taste very good. And their stuff was awesome. I mean, I'm not a gluten-free person. I don't suffer from some of these other things, but but their product tasted great. Finally, they overcame that taste issue by getting people to try it, getting the markets to try it. And then the visibility of celiac and gluten issues became higher and higher. So bottom line, this is a great story. They are now the largest bakery in this region. They went from a 5,000 square foot bakery situation now to where I think they're in close to 80,000 square feet, hundreds of employees. They supply most of the Whole Foods to the Whole Foods across the country now from this bakery. I wish there were actually local bakeries around rather than having one that's thousands of miles away. But bottom line is that there was this knock on gluten-free, especially baked types of things, that they didn't taste good. That, I think, has been overcome. But I'm curious about your thoughts, Mike and Tyler.
I think Teresa or someone said that gluten gives bread a good texture, and that's true. That is one of the appealing things about gluten, is it does make your bread a little fluffier. Mm-hmm. But in regards to other baked goods, think about this. You're just not using wheat-based flour. You're using almond flour. You're using rice flour. It doesn't have that much of a taste difference at all.
Right.
It might have a bit of a textural difference, but if you have a gluten-free cake next to a regular cake, I doubt you're going to taste the difference. Almond flour is used in a lot of cooking that's not considered gluten-free cooking. A lot of French cooking.
And much more nutritious for you, by the way.
Absolutely. A little more expensive, though, since it's almond flour.
Yeah.
A lot of French cooking, a lot of French baking is macarons. All that's almond flour.
Oh, is that right?
So there might be a little bit of a textural difference. Pizza crust for me is one thing I miss. I miss like a thick crust pizza.
Yeah.
I have to go with thin crust, but thin crust pizza is still great. And Udi's and some other brands still have a great thick crust.
Hey, I love bread. Number one, I tell anybody that the reason why I've struggled with weight all my life is because I am the epitome of the doughboy. I love bread. You give me a nice, big, hot, round loaf of sourdough bread and a slab of butter, and I'm good to go. That's all I need. But it is the reason that I never could maintain my weight. And since I've gotten off grains now, my weight is coming back to normal. I'm shrinking to the way I should. Now I've done like you, Tyler. I've added exercise and those type of things and made some lifestyle changes, and that's important. Again, there's no magic pill in health that's going to cure you of anything. You have to make those lifestyle changes. And unfortunately, the problem with celiac disease, or really even anybody that fights from gluten intolerance, you have to make those changes. Otherwise, you're going to continue to suffer from the symptoms. One of the interesting things that we haven't talked about, but it's huge in the health arena these days, is leaky gut syndrome. We know scientifically that leaky gut has something to do with grains, and particularly wheat, and a certain genotype that comes from the wheat that helps contribute to leaky gut. If you have leaky gut, basically what that means is that little tiny holes are literally coming through your intestinal tract, and your byproduct that's supposed to be going out your pooper is going into your body and causing your body to become toxic. It's a terrible, terrible disease. I don't know how much celiac overlaps with leaky gut. Maybe you can talk to that, Tyler, if you know. Again, just so everybody knows, nobody on this stage or panel are doctors. We're speaking from research that we've done or things we've read, or in Tyler's case, and somewhat in my case, personal experience with gluten. And that's I just want to throw that disclaimer out there. So do your own research, but there's tons of it out there, and really good research. But getting back to that question, do you know much about the leaky gut syndrome with celiac, or is there a carryover or a fallover of that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I imagine there could be. Celiac's all about inflammation.
Okay.
For people that have just joined, the difference between a intolerance and celiacs is an intolerance is just going to make you uncomfortable, give you discomfort. Celiacs, there's actually inflammation in your intestinal tract.
Gotcha.
That can be damaging over time.
Yeah.
people that are here that just joined.
Well, chronic inflammation takes your body all different ways. I mean, it can go into arthritis and those things and make those things worse. That's what I noticed as I'm getting older. I started having more and more joint pain, particularly in my knees, because I'm a big guy, and I'll call it what it is, because I'm a fat guy. That added stress to my knees. But I noticed once I got rid of the gluten, that started subsiding. Still have a little bit, still a little stiff, but much, much less. Now, is that because of the gluten, or is that because of the exercise program I went on? I'm not sure. Kind of like you said, Tyler, early on, it may be coincidence. I don't particularly believe that it's coincidental because of all the research they're finding and how bad this stuff called gluten it really is for you.
Yeah. And I think it almost has a bit of a stigma, because when gluten-free became a thing, when it first started coming into prominence, I think a lot of people thought it was a health fad rather than a health issue.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just thought people were getting rid of bread and getting rid of and same with gluten to be hip and be cool, and it's the new thing. But no, it's a medical condition, and if it's bothering you, it's bothering you. A lot of people have undiagnosed gluten.
Yeah.
I don't know what the statistic is, but it is a good amount of people.
Yeah.
But just to give you guys an idea of what a gluten-free diet is, it's not that different from what you're likely. I wake up in the morning, I have hash browns. That's delicious. I mean, some prepackaged hash browns might, if they're fried, I don't know why they wouldn't be. French fries might be coated with wheat or flour, but hash browns aren't. Eggs and a juice. I make a tuna salad for lunch, and then for dinner I'll grill a fish or grill a steak or any kind of meat. Tacos with corn tortilla. Obviously, we talked about the GMO issue, but tacos. It's not that difficult. You can still eat very well. Go to a restaurant, get a grilled meat and a vegetable and mashed potatoes, and I mean, you're fine. It's not that big of a variation from what you're likely already eating.
Exactly. No, that's the thing I think people need to understand, that, it is a lifestyle change to get rid of the gluten, but at the same time, it's not that big of a change. You mentioned something you didn't mention, and what I was curious about, again, I didn't find it, so I'm assuming not. How about oatmeal, oats? Does that not have gluten in it, or do you know?
Right.
Does not.
Right. Oatmeal is good to eat if you have any kind of gluten issue.
Okay, and again, with oat flour, you can make almost the cakes or breads or anything almost identical to wheat.
Right.
Because it's very similar in the grain.
I'm going to make a gumbo tonight. I'm just going to use rice flour instead of regular flour.
Nice. Are you making a big pot? I might be on my way. That sounds delicious.
Come on. Louisiana, come on through.
Oh, man. I might take you up on that soon.
You talked about bread. I do miss po' boy bread.
Oh, I bet.
Very much.
Yeah. Hey, but it's just one thing. There's still a lot of other marvelous foods. The other thing that I've gotten into that I've already touched on it, but man, it's so important if you can just get whatever you're eating, eat organic. You can buy organic anything these days. Make sure your meats are grass-fed and grass-finished. By the way, they're through the whole process. If you are eating meats that are finished on grains, then it's the same as you eating those grains. And believe it or not, that gluten can pass through the meat and into your body. That's one of the things that I read a whole research paper on that this week. So it was it's an interesting process. Those little micronutrients do pass through to us. Teresa, you're there.
Am I here? Wonderful. I've been struggling to connect.
Yeah,
I finally changed to Chrome out of Firefox, and now I finally seem to have gotten through. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. So I don't know how much you've heard or how much you've missed, but we wanted you on here because you've been gluten-free for how long now? Tell us your story.
Yeah,
Before
almost.
You go, this is Teresa Tierney, by the way, everybody. I'm sorry to introduce you. Forgot to introduce you. Teresa's in Ireland, so she's probably getting ready to eat her gluten-free dinner, or maybe she's already eaten dinner. I don't know. But anyway, sorry for that. Tell us your story, Teresa.
Thanks, Mike. And I have caught some parts and missed other parts, so I'd say my experience has been pretty different from Tyler, and I appreciate you being on here and carrying the gluten-free torch while I was having my issues. I don't know the science of exactly what I have, because supposedly I had a test for celiac disease and it came back negative. So I don't know whether I have an allergy, an intolerance, whatever you might call it, but I think mine might be more of an acquired problem rather than something I was born with, possibly. About a year before I started to have symptoms, I had severe food poisoning. So this was when I was in college, so maybe when I was 19 or 20. And about a year later, started to get these strange stomach cramps now and then and couldn't figure it out. And over the next 15 years, just tried everything. And basically the list of foods that I didn't think I could eat got longer and longer, things that I had attributed to causing me these issues. And was diagnosed with IBS and went to several different doctors. No one could ever help me. Finally went just about 3 years ago, I took a nutrition course from a great naturopathic doctor in Liverpool, New York. Dr. Orlowski taught us some really, really great information about nutrition in general. And I was sort of having newer issues than energy issues, problems with headaches, chronic sinus infections, and all these things. And she just said, taught us so much about how much gluten can affect your health in so many different ways. And I thought, why not just try it? So I did, and I was stunned to find that after 15 more years that my stomach issues just completely resolved. That must be what it was all those years. And it also solved the sinus infections. It also solved the fatigue, the grain brain that they talk about, tiredness. Couldn't believe how much more energy I had. So I did sort of cheat for the first year. I would, sometimes think I'm feeling so well, I'm going to have a treat, and then would be quickly very sorry. And so now, probably for 2 solid years, I'm just very, very strict. Though I'm finding even more and more, you can't even trust what's on labels. I searched for, the other day, just with Christmas coming up, searched for gluten-free alcoholic drinks. And I found that it's even throughout different wines, it's added to so many things that you just would have no idea it's involved in the processing of them. So I think it's increasingly difficult for people to just be really careful of what they're getting. And there's things that I eat sometimes that say gluten-free on them, and I don't feel very well after, an hour or so after. And I think, I wonder, was that contaminated in some way?
So you kind of answered the question. Because you've been off grains for how long, or gluten for how long?
Probably really strictly for 2 years.
Okay, and so now if you have anything by accident that you eat, how quickly do the symptoms show up? Or when you say feeling ill, or are you getting really sick, or you just feel off, or what happens now?
I think it might depend on how much I have, but I recently was away for the weekend and went to a pizza shop, and I was excited to find out they had gluten-free crusts, but I don't know if maybe they cooked it on top of a spot that had a regular pizza in it or something, because about 2 hours after I ate, I just had such an attack of nausea and a headache that I just could hardly stand. And within a couple hours, I just fell asleep, woke up in the morning feeling kind of okay again, and that's the only thing I can think that it might have been. Other times, I might just feel a little off for an hour or so, and I just think maybe it was a really trace amount.
Interesting.
So it's difficult to know, I think. So
just the littlest amount is having that effect. That's what's kind of crazy to me, and that's why when you think about it, it's very, very serious. It's something we all should look at. You know that there's actually a research that has come out recently, but they have tied conclusively that wheat cuts off blood flow to your frontal cortex. And this started, the research started back in like 1954 with people that had schizophrenia. They would take them off of wheat, and their symptoms went away of schizophrenia. And so back as early as 1954, they started doing research into this area. And now, just recently, they've conclusively, scientifically proven, and without getting into it, there's certain genes in the wheat gluten itself that they have proven cuts off blood flow to the frontal cortex. Obviously, a very, very, very powerful excitotoxin, if you will, that is in the wheat and in the gluten that is causing that. If it can shut down blood flow to your frontal cortex, and they can measure that and see that through tomography, it's pretty amazing to me. It's enough of a sign, if you will, to go away from that type of product. If you look at, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, just real quick. Jason, Jason, by the way, who's on here, has said that he has been gluten-free for a while, lost a bunch of weight. He can think clearer. And then I asked a question. I asked him, what made his decision to become gluten-free? And he said he read Wheat Belly, which I'm assuming that's a book or something. Jason, if you could maybe even put a note in here, or if you want to come online, actually, I'll jump off and you can come in and tell us. So I'm going to actually do that. I'll finish up here and I'll jump off and there'll be an open seat. But if you don't want to come on, just put in a note maybe where we could find that document that you've described, Wheat Belly there. I'm going to jump off now.
Wheat Belly is a really good book about wheat.
Oh, you know about it. Great.
It does talk a lot about what we've been talking about. Yeah. What do you eat? Real food. Exactly. And that's what I was getting earlier. It's because food is so cultural, and people look at you crazy when you're on a specific diet. But if it makes you feel better, it makes you feel better.
It is true. I tell people sometimes now even that I'm celiac if I'm eating out, because I hate that stigma that's attached. If they say, oh, you're just intolerant, or you're just being fussy, or you just, trying to be trendy or something.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a huge stigma around it still.
Yeah.
Great.
And that's what I'm sure Jason will tell you too, is it's not that big of a diet shift. Don't get fried food, get it grilled. It's not coated on anything, and get some veggies. I mean, it's not too much of a deviation.
Jason, welcome.
Hey,
welcome.
how you
Good to
guys
have
doing?
you. Doing great.
Yeah.
So tell us your story with gluten. This is exciting.
I just I've always hustled in business, but I just always felt. Any of you seen Joe versus the volcano?
Love it. Yeah,
and he's like, I have a brain cloud. I knew it. I didn't know it, but I knew it, right? So I felt like I had a brain cloud, and like I knew I should be sharper than I was. I felt like something was holding me back, and I just could not figure it out. It was really frustrating. And then I read the book Wheat Belly. I'd read different articles and different things about, gluten and stuff like that. But I was like, all right, I'm going to read this Wheat Belly book because it's pretty popular. I threw the Amazon link in there. I'm not a savvy affiliate marketer yet, so it's just a straight link, guys. So, yeah, I actually went on in iBooks and got like the condensed version of it because I just wanted the quick and dirty. So I read that and I was like, okay, this makes sense, right? It makes sense that it can negatively impact us. It makes sense that grains have never been like health food. They've always been starvation food. It's always been, even in the Bible, it's always like in times of famine that they turn to grains and things like this. And
true.
And so I started I cut that out, and it wasn't really too hard because a lot of my favorite foods don't have wheat in them anyway. I mean, pretty much if you cut out gluten, you pretty much cut out all the shit. Like bottom line, like you eliminate most of the carbs that are just garbage and have no nutrition. And so like I love avocados. That's my fast food. Cut an avocado in half, pull the pit out, salt and pepper it. It's like that's like people always complain like, oh well, I don't have time. Avocado, you just eat the food like it's real food. You just eat it,
right?
Like you grab an apple and you just eat it. Like that's the fastest food on the planet. Like that's fast food. Like you just nuts. I just pull them out of the thing and I just eat them, right? So, Yeah. So I love doing green smoothies in the morning. Really easy. Um, and then just eating food like plants, like stuff that actually grows, or meat or whatever, just real food.
Just
Instead of
living.
all,
Yeah.
you just avoid all the aisles where they have boxes of all the stuff that's the cheapest stuff on the planet for them to market, which is sugar, corn, soy, and wheat, right? Which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
all the subsidized, like crappiest stuff that you could possibly eat because it's the cheapest stuff for them to make. So what do? They just make all these different combinations of those elements. And then dairy. So I
Absolutely.
kind of cut down on the dairy too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think that's important because it's similar to me. I know you came on, I think, in the middle of it, but I was saying the same thing. I mean, I was active. I worked out. I ate healthy, but I was still eating wheat. I was eating whole wheat, and it's interesting because it seems like you still liked real food, but you still had that brain cloud, and it was the same for me. I ate healthy, what traditionally we consider healthy. I was eating it, and I was active, but I just still felt terrible.
Yeah, then I was able to think clear, which I thought was really weird. Mood gets improved when you can think clear. I had less of those moments where I was like, what am I doing right now? Like I'm trying really hard to do something and then I'm like stuck. Or I spent less time feeling stalled, like I'm not making progress even though I'm busy, right? So less of that, and just overall feel better, in general. And I lost a bunch of weight. Like I didn't even try. I wasn't like really working out a bunch or doing anything, but I lost like at least 30 pounds, maybe 40 pounds. Like it just came off. And
Fantastic.
just because I was eating like normal food, like real food with nutrition. So, and then you don't have to eat as much. Here's the thing I realized. When people see overweight people, a lot of times they think, oh man, that person eats way too much, which may be true. But the reality is when I see somebody that's overweight, I instantly think they're starving to death.
You're absolutely right.
They're absolutely starving to death. Somebody that is grotesquely overweight, they are starving to death. If you are carrying extra weight or you are overweight, your body is probably starving. It's hungry. What's it hungry for? Real nutrition. But you're not giving it real nutrition every time you eat. So what does it do? It says eat more. So you're just eating all the stuff that has no nutrition. And so you're eating crazy amounts of food to get very little nutrition. And that's why they call it junk food. It's junk. And so these people that are grotesquely or massively overweight, they are absolutely starving. Inside that big body is this starving, crazy person. Like they're going crazy inside because they need food and they need nutrition and they're not getting it.
It's wonderful. Great answer. Great comments too. I really appreciate. So you didn't have the things like Tyler, where you were, other than just kind of feeling off. You just kind of woke up one day and felt like you needed to make a change, or do you have celiac disease?
I've never been tested for it, but
Okay.
but I personally think everybody's impacted by it. Like I
I agree.
watch my kids and how addicted they are to it, and the one thing I learned from the book, which I thought was really interesting, is I can't remember what it calls them, but wheat has these chemical compounds that bind with opiate receptors in the brain, just like heroin. And so
Sugar.
wheat's
Yeah.
addictive. Wheat has an addictive property, and I've seen my kids go flipping crazy, like not getting wheat, like they're like they're having withdrawals and stuff.
Jason,
I'm the
you
only
just brought up
person in my family that's gluten free though.
okay, well, you brought up a really important point to me. I know, obviously, you're not that old, so you have your children, I would say, are younger. They're probably still at home. Teresa, I was going to
The
ask
ripe
you that
age of
question.
38.
You're 38. Yeah, okay, so you're still a youngin. Teresa, how do you deal with that? Because obviously you want your kids to be healthy. You found for yourself that this works for you. Have you transferred that over to your kids? Have you instilled in them to try and push away from the wheat products and the gluten?
Very much so. I'd say most of the cooking that I do for the family as a whole, just by default, is gluten-free because it's easier anyway. Um, but I do give them, if I get them high quality organic wheat, I will bake them. And the funny thing, actually, just skipping back to my history, I used to own a bakery years ago, so I would
No
have had
kidding.
so much wheat. I would have been exposed to it in every way possible. And the interesting thing is I actually made my kids fresh homemade bread the other day, and I noticed I sneezed for about 5 minutes after making it,
Wow.
and my hands were rather raw. So I'm even convinced that it, even up in my nasal cavity with all the flour in the air, it was causing a reaction for me. So it does beg the question whether it would be a good idea to bring the whole family off it. As I say, it is a huge priority to make sure we get the organic, unsprayed wheat, which I suppose is questionable too how completely pure it is because it's all hybridized anyway. But that's the long answer to your question. I think probably to reduce it as much as I can and make sure the kids are exposed to other multigrains as well and not just so stuck on wheat that it seems to be the culture.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Jason, you haven't tried to get your kids off of it, obviously.
No, not so much. I
Okay.
choose my battles. So
Yeah, no, I understand.
if mom is not on wheat, then it probably goes a lot easier for everybody to not be on wheat. But
Sure.
Yeah, that's a tough one because my girlfriend,
she's looking at me right now, my wife. But she hasn't cut out wheat. She's tried a couple times.
She will. It's contagious.
They were talking about how it messes up the prefrontal cortex or whatever, and it's related to schizophrenia.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you know what's wrong with her. No, I'm just kidding. Hi, nice to see you.
Hey, we'll see ya. Have fun.
Go ahead, Tyler. You were talking.
Pretty now.
Oh, do I have lipstick? I'll take it
Perfect.
if it's from you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
No, I was just gonna say, because my girlfriend and I, we rarely eat meat anyway. We mainly eat seafood, and even that occasionally. So we've discussed similar things about our kids. Like, are they gonna eat, chicken nuggets like every other 2-year-old, or what are they gonna eat? So
yeah, party food.
Yeah, it's something I'm not gonna think about because I'm not thinking of having kids for some time. So
Yeah.
We're gonna get to it.
Yeah.
You never know.
I know. I'm not having kids still.
Yeah, but I got to a point once, like I've even tried like just doing a raw foods diet for a little while. Like I tried that. I tried cutting out dairy like completely. I got to the point where I was reading so many scary things about foods, like I felt like I couldn't eat anything. I was like, all right, I have to eat pretty much like things that are like gluten-free, pesticide-free, like everything free. And I was like, I can eat ice. Ice is safe. Ice has nothing else in it. Like that was it.
If it's pure spring water, it's safe.
So I think also like people just need to make small changes and just figure out and listen to their body and see how they feel.
Yep.
That's the thing. Like when I was young, I ate a lot of candy and sugar because my mom had like a sweet tooth. It was available. She was making stuff. And I like quickly learned how I felt like going through high school and stuff. I felt these crashes and I felt low and like kind of depressed from sugar. So I started just avoiding candy. Like I just didn't like candy anymore because I didn't like how I felt. And I think when we start just listening to how we feel from certain foods, now sometimes we just have no clue because we're eating so much of the same stuff in just various forms, like wheats and everything, that we aren't aware. And so just try it out. Like you try it out for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks is about the time it takes your body to adjust to most medications, most things, and see how you're feeling by the end of the 2 weeks. And just take note. And then when you go back to it, see what's different. And 2 weeks isn't that hard. Just try it out. And if you notice there's a big difference, and if you notice you don't feel as good, then don't do it. Every now and then I'll cheat and I'll do like Thai food that's like fried or something that's really tasty or whatever. And then I'm not feeling good. My digestion's not feeling good. And I have 2 or 3 days where I'm like, ugh. I'm not like dying, but then I recognize that that's how I used to feel all the time. Like I used to feel that way every day, like
Crappy.
diarrhea,
Yeah.
or like not foggy thinking, gut problems, stress, like all these kind of things. And I thought that was normal.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just like, that's normal. Like if you do not have healthy, solid poop in the toilet, like that's not normal. There's a
Right.
problem. Like you
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
probably get
Yeah.
some stuff checked out. So
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I noticed, you talk about brain fog, or they call it wheat brain, and I've heard different
cloud.
different things called like that. But one thing I noticed when I went off grains, I used to when I was eating grains, and I thought I ate healthy. I was into the organic, pretty much organic everything, and a lot of fresh foods and grass-fed beef and all that good stuff. But I was still eating a lot of wheat and a lot of wheat products and bread, and I would eat sprouted bread, Ezekiel bread, whatever. But one of the ingredients on that is gluten. But what I noticed about gluten, when I went off of it, I didn't need my coffee in the morning. I woke up and I'd wake up refreshed, ready to go. My mind was alert. And that's the biggest thing I noticed. I used to have 3 or 4 cups of coffee in the morning to really keep myself going. And now I don't have coffee anymore, which is another good thing that I've gotten off of because I got off gluten, and that is the caffeine. So I don't need that extra stimulant now, and that helps.
Never really drank coffee. I've never really
Yeah.
done the coffee thing, but one of my buddies, he's pretty into health. He's kind of a health whiz, and he says like if you're gonna do coffee, do it like around 2 or 3 in the afternoon when you're getting a little sluggish. And in the morning, he says instead do lemon water. That's kind of the craze lately. This is lemon water. So I've got like a little like key lime tree in my plant in my backyard. So I just cut them in half and I squeeze one into my water. And I've been doing that in the morning. I'm traveling right now. I'm out at family. So I brought I know I'm traveling for like 6 days. So I brought 6 limes and I've just been doing that. But you do some sort of citrus water like that, and the electrolytes and everything else, the water getting hydrated and all this stuff getting into you in the morning, and lemon alkalizes. Like it's really like I'm pretty alert. Like I feel pretty good in the morning, and I don't do the caffeine thing. So caffeine messes me up. Like I take caffeine and I feel this overwhelming anxiety, like something's coming to get me. Like I feel anxious. I'm like, and like I feel like something's wrong. And for me, like it doesn't work well. Like I just feel like something's wrong. And I think what's going on is that fight or flight is starting to kick in. The adrenal glands are kicking in, going crazy. And people that are like going crazy on the caffeine, they're going to have adrenal fatigue. Like it's just a matter of time. They're going to tap out those adrenal glands that are kicking in because of the caffeine, and then they're going to have chronic fatigue. They're going to feel sluggish and slow all the time.
Yep.
And then they'll have to the only way they can boost themselves up is to take this caffeine in to spike their adrenal glands up, but eventually they're going to tap out and say, forget it, we're done. So the other thing that I noticed had a huge impact, not just on my health, digestion, everything, is just getting sleep. Like I used to not sleep. A lot of entrepreneurs do this. A lot of my coaching clients do, like they don't sleep. And sleep's a game changer. Like if you don't go to bed by 10, so then what happens is your adrenal glands start to kick in, and then you spike, and then you aren't going to be able to get to sleep till like 2 or 3 in the morning till your body like completely crashes. Like if you go to bed at midnight, then you're like forcing yourself to go to sleep, and while your adrenal glands are kicked in. So
yep. Just Teresa put that up. I forgot to mention it. We do have my father and I put together a little book about recharging your immune system. You can go to that link there and get that book and get on our list if you'd like. We are past the hour. We're coming up to it. I like to try and keep these as close to an hour as we can. We do have these weekly We'll be back next week. We haven't got a regular set time because some of our guests, like we mentioned, are from all over the world, and we have to kind of accommodate them. So, but one thing I'd like to ask the group that is here, if there's any subject that you'd like us to cover, any health-related subject. Obviously, this has been a good one today. If there's anything that you'd like us to see covered in the next coming weeks in a blab, in the form of a blab, love to have your input. Just put it over in the comments section. That would be great. Obviously, I can keep going if we want to keep this conversation going. People are leaving a little bit, but people are coming in also. Teresa, how are you doing on time? And Tyler, I don't want to take your time either. I know you guys got a busy day probably.
Well, I'm going to bow out, but I appreciate you
Jason.
having me pop in. Good to meet everybody here.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Jason.
And
will you be sure to connect with us? Would you like us on Twitter, and then we can keep in touch, and we'll let you know next time we hold one of these.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
So super. Have a great Christmas. All right. So Teresa, do you have any comments since you got in here late and didn't really get to say a whole lot? Do you have any comments that you want to say, or things that you didn't get a chance to say that you want to cover real quickly?
I guess the only thing that I kept wanting to say when I couldn't connect, and maybe it was said when I was off, and Jason made me think of it there, it is also really possible with now all these sort of fake gluten-free alternatives that they've made for all the foods that we miss, which isn't necessarily a good thing, that there's tons of gluten-free foods that would be just as bad as gluten-full foods. And so just a warning to people to be careful of those. You could just, slide over into a gluten-free diet without a ton of benefit if you're not making sure you're still getting all those great, fruits and vegetables, and you're eating still really processed pastas and things like that. So just a little warning, because you could find, even gaining weight on a gluten-free diet if you're still eating a ton of this sort of processed stuff.
Sure. Good point. Excellent. How about you, Tyler? Do you have any final comments you'd like to throw in there, or encouragement for anybody?
Yeah. Kind of to build on what Teresa was saying, food's cultural. I mean, I'm going to go to my Italian grandmother's house here shortly, and she's going to be like, hey, you want a snack? And it's going to be a lasagna, because that's just a snack.
A nice light snack, right?
It's going to be a whole lasagna just for you. That's culture, and food is so culturally focused. But just see how you feel, and if you find out Snickers bars are gluten free, if you find out Snicker bars are gluten free, and you're going to the store and you shouldn't be doing that. So it's absolutely, you have to remove yourself from the culture of food and the guilty pleasure of food, and just be smart. You know deep down that just because a Snickers bar is gluten free, it's not going to be best for you. But no, just try it. And everyone's going to be different. And I know Teresa touched on that too, about, certain things being in the air affecting her. So not everyone's going to be the same. So just see what works for you. And like I was saying earlier, it's not difficult to cut out pasta, to cut out frying things. Just see how it makes you feel. And that's the big thing, because you're probably going to feel a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to just throw in one more quick thing that you just made me think of there as well, that trust in your own body, as Jason said, and Tyler, like you just said too. I mean, I had 15 years of doctors and different, even other practitioners telling me that they couldn't figure out what was wrong, though, try all these different things, and where I knew myself it wasn't right. Just, stay off a huge list of foods, and I just knew myself that I had to try this, and it was such an amazing discovery for my health that I would encourage anybody, your own body, just to go with, test out these things and try them for yourself.
Good. Yeah, it was about 2 years for me, and the funniest part of it, I was working in marketing for a national restaurant chain, and we had to sit in these classes about gluten. And
oh, really?
What makes gluten? What makes something gluten free? If we can put it on the packaging, what do we have to do? And it just never clicked what that was. But no, I was in and out of hospitals and tests just like Teresa, and it was just getting rid of wheat, getting rid of flour. And I felt amazing very quickly.
That is amazing. That's testament enough. I mean, if it worked for you, it's going to work for other people. And that would probably be a good point of reference to start from and actually to finish on today, is that if you're feeling off and you're not on your game, whatever that may be, and it could be from the very extreme and constant diarrhea to just not feeling good, probably one of the best things you could do is, if you eliminate one thing, start with wheat and wheat products across the board. Eliminate that. Eliminate the gluten. If you can do that alone, I think you'll see an improvement. And then if that doesn't get you better, you start going to other things. But chances are, based on the research that I've done, and particularly this past week, is that it's going to help you. It's going to make you feel better. It's made me feel better. And I've only been doing it for a few months now, but the weight's starting to come off. And it's like Jason earlier said, that it's just coming off. And I'm not changing anything other than I'm not changing the way I eat, really, anything like that. I did start exercising because I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more energetic. So I started adding exercise, and I know that's helping. But I think just getting rid of it, I am feeling better. And it's a drastic improvement for me. So it'll work for you if it works for me. You know, Socrates said, let your food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. So, or it might be reversed or whatever. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but the point is that we're all here. Our bodies have to be nourished properly for them to work proper. And your body is the only thing that is going to heal yourself of any disease. No doctor is going to heal you of any disease, particularly with any synthetic pharmaceutical that they're going to prescribe to you. That's not going to heal your disease. You have to get to the root cause of your disease and heal it. And your body has to be nourished properly for that to work. And grain products, with all the scientific research that's coming out, will not heal your body properly, and it won't nourish your body properly. In fact, it's just the opposite. The gluten and the wheat products are going to be more detrimental to your health, and it'll be counterproductive for your body's ability to work properly and its immune system to work properly. So with that, if you guys don't have anything more to add, or if there's anybody in the audience that wanted to jump in here real quick, I think we'll call this a wrap. Anybody there that wants to? Yeah, Blue Streak Science. I just see you just came in here. It was a little bit about those with celiac, and Tyler has celiac disease. Told us all about it. Welcome to the blab. We're getting ready to finish up here, but if you have something to add, love to have you jump in a seat there and tell us what you know. Obviously, I follow you. I must have seen you on a couple other blabs, and I know that you're into the whole science of this, and I wish you would have been earlier, because I know you could have really added something. So if you'd like to, jump in the seat. We'd love to have you for a few minutes. But if not, that's fine too. Teresa, how about you? Anything last? I think you finished up already.
Yeah, and there's 43 people here watching us. We do always recommend you go ahead and follow Mike as well as Teresa, because these will be happening quite often.
And you as well.
And me too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the cool thing about Blab, is people pop in and out. Up at the very top, you can just click on their name and get it there. So awesome. I'm going to pause the recording, turn this recording afterwards. We'll be able to see this. Hopefully it'll benefit you, and hopefully we learned something. Again, Tyler, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and your success story with celiac disease. And Teresa, the same thing with you. Really appreciate you sharing with us how gluten has impacted your life and how getting off of it has greatly improved your life. I think that's just an awesome testament to it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Okay, guys.